Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where we say it's not whether or not you're pessimistic, but it's whether you're pessimistic enough. I'm going to admit, Eli, the computer guy, might have been wrong about the situation between China and the United States and the AI and technology arms race. It looks like I missed the mark. Meaning, I think this crap's gonna get far, far worse for us, far quicker than many of us realized. So we have NVIDIA. We have NVIDIA coming out. And they are investing, ooh, look at this. Isn't this good news? They are investing $5 billion in Intel. NVIDIA to invest $5 billion in Intel and develop chips with one-time arrival. And now you might be sitting there going, well, that's a good thing, right? NVIDIA is a $4 trillion company. They're investing in Intel. This shows you that NVIDIA thinks Intel is going in the right direction. It's like, well, you could look at it that way. Or it might be that NVIDIA realizes we have screwed up in the geopolitical AI arms race, and they might be about to get screwed incredibly quickly. So one of the things to be thinking about whenever you're looking at any of these technology companies, whether you're looking at NVIDIA, whether you're looking at Intel, Microsoft with Windows, or Apple, or whatever else, is that for any of these products, that they are a tech stack, right? One particular product has no value. If somebody hands you a Blackwell H100 GPU, and that is literally all you get, it has a zero value, right? You can't do anything with just a GPU. Right? But Eli, the GPU, and you can go on these stats and give me a spreadsheet and the whole 9 yards. But here's the thing. If you are just given a GPU, that GPU has no value. Right? The GPU has to be put into a motherboard. That motherboard needs RAM, manufactured by somebody else. CPUs manufactured by somebody else. The motherboard is manufactured by other companies. All the components on the motherboard are manufactured by other companies. It has to go into a case. That case has to get put into a rack. That then has to be connected to a network infrastructure, right? And all of these things come together in order to provide a solution. And that's one of the interesting things we see out of China right now with how they're dealing with the AI arms race, is that they are building overall solutions. You've heard about the Huawei. Is it Ascent, Aspire? I keep forgetting the words for them. But anyways, right? They're creating their system. And there's a network architecture, and there's a server architecture, and there's an operating architecture, and there's the GPU and processors. But basically, they are creating this overall architecture, these overall systems in order to provide AI. One of the issues with how we do things in the United States is that many of the components for an overall system are designed, manufactured, and sold by a number of different companies. And so one of the problems you can run into is what happens if one of the companies fails, right? All of a sudden, you're no longer able to deliver your particular product. I talked about this before, where I ran into one of my viewers who was actually responsible for building one of Azure's data centers. So back when Azure was brand new, they were spinning up a data center. They had to install 500,000 servers. Back when installing 500,000 servers was actually an impressive thing. And so the interesting thing is, I sat down, we had a cup of coffee, we were talking about it, and he talked about how he had a direct line into the supplies that were going into the Intel fab to verify that they were actually getting the raw components required to be able to manufacture the 500,000 CPUs that they needed. Right? Because they needed the CPUs, they needed all this stuff. So just because you order 500,000 CPUs from Intel doesn't mean you're actually gonna get them, right? So they needed visibility into Intel's manufacturing process to make sure there weren't slowdowns on the line, to make sure there wasn't, excessive error rates, to make sure that Intel was in fact doing what they were supposed to do in order to supply all of these servers. Because that's the thing, right? If you're trying to build 500,000 servers and Intel craps the bed like they're known to do, and you only get 50,000 CPUs, well, that's going to be a really big problem. So I think one of the interesting things for NVIDIA right now, right? NVIDIA is a $4 trillion company, right? They are at the top of the world. But in a world where tech stacks are built on all of these different components, what happens if Intel dies? What happens if Intel well and truly craps the bed? Will NVIDIA be able to keep their position? And that's the issue we've had with Intel now, is Intel, I'm not saying they're in a death spiral. I'm just saying if you look at a death spiral and you look at what Intel is doing, they look very, 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 very similar, right? So that's one of the things right now. Like Intel looks like it's in a death spiral. They don't really seem to know what the hell it is they're trying to do. They're literally firing tens of thousands of employees. They're like 40,000 employees over the past 2 years. They're just firing a tremendous number of employees. And there's a real question about whether Intel will be able to succeed. So many of the things that should have been slam dunks for them. 5G should have been a slam dunk. A lot of these things, right? The Atom processors, so the Atom processors were supposed to compete with ARM. A lot of these things, right? They just fail. Like, I don't even know what to say. They just failed miserably at. And so there's a big question now about whether Intel will be able to survive. As I've talked about before, a lot of companies that we assumed would be here forever have died. I remember when Yahoo was Yahoo, and Research in Motion was Research in Motion, and AOL was AOL, right? We've had large tech companies that have imploded, right? There's this idea that because a company is large and powerful now, it will continue to be large and powerful. And that's just simply not how things work in the technology world, right? Enough stumbles, enough stupid stumbles, and a company can burn in shockingly quickly. And so I think that's going to be an interesting thing with what's going on, especially geopolitically, right? As the United States tries to create a hard line between Chinese technology and American technology, right? That's going to mean more and more companies have to decide what stack they're going to build on. Are you going to build on the China stack, or are you going to build on the American stack, right? And they're going to start to become ever more separate stacks. And then what that also means is any major technology companies that we have in our stack, if they fail, it will become even more damaging to the overall stack for when people are in India or Cambodia or South Africa or Brazil, when they're thinking about what technology stack to build on, right? They look at China going full speed ahead, and they look at the United States doing whatever the hell we've been doing for the past little while. Right? What happens when the entire industry of a country starts going into that death spiral? So what I think is going on right now is I think NVIDIA is trying to throw Intel a lifeline and hope it's kind of like a Microsoft moment with Apple, that somehow magic happens and Intel comes back. So that's one of the things with Microsoft. So Microsoft had the problem back in the day of becoming a monopoly, right? So back in the day, basically everybody ran Windows operating systems. In the United States, there's not supposed to be monopolies. So Apple was going along. And so Apple was really useful for Microsoft for a long time, because Apple had like 5% market share. They basically had no percent market share. But the important thing is, they existed. They existed, right? So you have Microsoft, and Microsoft could keep saying, we're not a monopoly. Look, Mac exists. Right? Anyways, the thing was, Apple was not doing well, right? Until Steve Jobs came back to Apple, Apple was really not doing well. And so at one point, right, Microsoft was doing really well. There was a real question about whether or not Apple would actually fail. And so Microsoft actually invested into Apple to prop their asses up. They literally invested in their competition to make sure that they still had competition. And this is one of the things too I want you to be thinking about, like with business. Like when you see things going on in business and you don't understand why things are happening, it's important to understand all these different things that like a CEO, managers have to worry about. And if you understand all of that, it starts to make more sense. Why would you invest in competition? Well, you would invest in competition if literally you need that competition to exist, right? And so I think that's what's going on right now with NVIDIA and Intel. It's not that Intel has a good plan. It's not that Intel is now at the bottom and NVIDIA thinks they can make an extra $1 trillion investing in Intel, and riding the wave of Intel up. Is that NVIDIA needs Intel to exist. And it's a Hail Mary pass. Maybe if we hand them $5 billion, the next version of Steve Jobs will come to Intel and basically be able to save all of our asses. Spoiler, I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think that's gonna work. But hey, who knows? Who knows? I have been wrong about many things in the past. NVIDIA, the semiconductor company powering the artificial intelligence revolution, said Thursday that it was buying a $5 billion stake in ailing rival Intel. The two companies will also begin a partnership to develop chips together for PCs and data centers. And so again, I think this is one of those things of basically NVIDIA trying to prop up Intel. So Intel now is worth about $150 billion. NVIDIA is worth somewhere around $4 trillion. So Intel is not a real competitor to NVIDIA right now, but it is useful that they exist. So if NVIDIA partners with Intel on certain products, right, NVIDIA can come in, kind of give Intel their cachet. Look, Intel's working with NVIDIA, right? That kind of boosts the branding of Intel, and maybe hopefully that will keep Intel alive. It might also help too if NVIDIA can come in, their management style can come in, that type of thing. Maybe they'll be able to break some of the cultural problems that Intel is having. You know, maybe. The announcement Thursday from NVIDIA comes just weeks after the US government purchased a 10% stake in Intel worth nearly $9 billion and after Japan's SoftBank invested $2 billion. I also think, I talk about this stuff with politics. Why do I keep talking about Trump? This is a technology channel. Why do I keep talking about Trump? Because, my friends, it is 2025. It is 2025. That's just how technology is nowadays. One of the interesting things, right? Trump, under the CHIPS Act, changed the money that was supposed to go to Intel from being a grant to being an equity purchase. So basically, the U.S. government purchased 10% of Intel for some reason. The idea is that if the U.S. government owns 10% of Intel, then, I don't know, they get underpants. I don't really understand why, right? But the curious thing here, remember, it's also about kissing ass, right? It's about kissing Trump's ass. It's about slobbering on Trump's ring, regardless of whether or not the crap makes sense. That's why it's interesting that like SoftBank, you notice SoftBank coming in, SoftBank put in $2 billion. Oh, this is Trump's special project. We're gonna throw in $2 billion. NVIDIA now throwing in $5 billion. The other thing to be thinking about this too, is this a business rationale or is this to help kiss Trump's ass, right? The idea being, right now NVIDIA has a lot of problems selling AI hardware into China. So they had to have their AI hardware massively kneecapped. They had the H20 chipset that was supposed to go to China. They had another chipset that was supposed to go to China. And now China has just simply said no. Like Lutnick has come out and said that America was going to sell China our fourth best AI hardware. And China basically said no. Why are we going to buy the fourth best hardware? We'll just buy our own. So one of the other things we think about too, from a political standpoint, is this might be, Jensen Huang trying to grease the wheels with Trump to say, look, I'm willing to spend $5 billion of NVIDIA's money to try to keep your Intel pet project going. You know, what would be nice is if we could actually sell some decent hardware to China that they might actually want to buy. And that's, like I say, that's one of the weird worlds that we're currently in with all of, with everything going on with technology right now. Technology is more about politics at this point in time than it is about much of anything else. I used to tell people, right back in the day, I used to tell people back in the day, back in 2012, you want to get into technology, get your MCSE. I was like, get your MCSE, that'll get you into technology. Then by like 2016, 17, 18, I started telling people, get your MBA or get your Juris Doctor. Yeah, your Juris Doctor, your law degree, is going to be more important in the technology world than knowing what a function is. I do feel now in 2025, it might be the fact that a poli-sci degree, we may have come to the point in time when a poli-sci degree is actually worth something. I don't know. Let's see here. Quote, this is a game changer deal for Intel as it now brings them front and center into the AI game, wrote tech analyst Dan Ives in a note Thursday. Quote, along with the recent U.S. government investment for 10%, this has been a golden few weeks for Intel after years of pain and frustration for investors, right? This is valuable for the investors. Basically, the U.S. government and NVIDIA are propping up the value of the Intel stock price. The question, though, comes back to is what is the plan here? Like they're like throwing money at Intel, saying, look, Intel is successful, right? They've got $17 billion in new investment. Look at how successful they are. And you're like, yeah, but what's the new products that are coming down the pike? Are they actually going to finish that fab in Ohio? What's going on in Poland? Like what is going on in Poland and Intel, right? Like the curious thing with this is this hyper focus on money, as if money itself solves a problem. But if you have money, and if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a valid vision for what your company is going to do, and you don't have a strong culture that is able to execute on that vision, then no amount of money matters. And that's the curious thing about all of this. I don't see anything coming out of Intel that I'm excited about, right? So I've talked about this before, right? Years ago, I had Intel, some people for Intel PR wanted to sponsor me, right? Before I started telling my opinions about Gaza and Israel. Anyways, and Trump. I used to actually have sponsors, right? And so Intel directly contacted me, and they were curious about sponsoring me, right? Anyway, so I'm sitting there, I'm talking with these two PR people about Intel and what I can do and what they can do and the whole 9 yards. And one of the things that I found fascinating at the time is we get to the point in the conversation where the PR person says, okay, well, let's make sure you're real. Let's make sure you actually like Intel. And so they asked me, they're like, so give us 3 products you're excited about that Intel is doing. And I was like, oh, 3 products. I was like, Edison. I was like, Edison is fucking awesome, right? So Edison was system on a chip. So be clear, many, many years ago, system on a chip, the entire computer was about the size of a quarter. And so they were talking back in the day, like you could put a computer like onto a baby's garments. And so it could have sensors in it to track what the baby is doing. And so like in neonatal units, like anything like that, you could have a full computer. You could have a full computer with a Wi-Fi stack, literally on something smaller than a Star Trek badge or whatever, to be able to track things, right? And so it was really cool. Again, remember IoT was still relatively new, really small computers were still relatively new, and so Intel, again, had this whole Edison platform. What happened to Edison? I don't know. Anyways, they had the Edison platform. Then they had Jarvis, which was really cool, again, at the same time period. So Jarvis, right, everybody was talking about augmented reality, all right? And augmented reality, generally when you're talking about augmented reality, is it's vision, right? It's augmenting information over the visual world. And so the curious thing that I found is they had this Jarvis system, I actually called it Jarvis. And it looked like a big ass hearing aid. It wasn't particularly pretty, but again, it was still like a new product. And the idea, and again, they were pushing this many years ago, was that it was a complete, it was simply it was going to be a verbal augmented reality system, right? So the idea is you simply have this in your ear, you don't have a screen, you don't have a watch, it just simply reminds you. Hey, a reminder. So basically like it would know the GPS. So when you go into a grocery store, hey, reminder, your wife wants you to pick up, garbage bags. Or, if you're doing something, hey, reminder, you need to pick up your kid. Or you could say, hey, and you could tell it to send a message or whatever, right? And again, to be clear, this was like 10 years ago, so it was much cooler than it is now. So anyways, this is Jarvis. And then there was something else I said. I may have been like Real Vision. So Real Vision was their computer vision system that they had back in the day. It was really fucking cool. Now look at my face. Look at my face. This is 10 years on. I still get excited about this shit. Edison is still fucking cool. Jarvis is still fucking cool. Real Vision, or whatever the third one I said, is real fucking cool. The funny part was I was talking to PR people, and literally there was just a blank look on their faces. There was a blank look on their face. And I literally told them, I was like, you don't know any of those products, do you? And they're like, no. I guess they expected me to say processors or something. It's a funny thing with PR people. Hey, Intel PR, maybe your company would do better if your employees actually knew what your company did. That's probably when you know a company is running into issues, when the PR people don't know your effing products. But anyways, the point that I'm trying to make here is look at my face. This was exciting shit. This is cool shit. This is shit that if it iteratively evolved over the past decade, would be really fucking awesome. But no idea what happened to Edison, no idea what happened to Jarvis, and as far as I understand, Real Vision got sold off. And so this is my issue. It's not that I can't be excited about Intel. It's not that Intel has no ability to do something interesting. It's that I am not seeing that come out of Intel. When I look at the new products and things that are actually interesting and innovative and exciting, I'm not seeing that from Intel. So I don't really understand what $17 billion does. Right? So even if you think Sam Altman is half a moron, right? Even if you think Sam Altman is batshit fucking crazy, right? Wanting to spend $4 trillion on CapEx expenses in order to build out AI data centers. Right? I do not believe in this one iota. Not one, none. I think it's just dumb. I think we're in an AI bubble. I think the CapEx expense on AI is incredibly stupid, the whole 9 yards. But, right? He says we need to do the new investment round. So I think they're trying to get a $40 billion round. I'm not sure what that $40 billion round is. And they're going to get that $40 billion round so that they can basically deploy more servers, so that they can build. So they're deploying services to Oracle. They're trying to build their own chips. They're trying to do a lot of things, right? So I don't agree. I don't believe in OpenAI's vision, but you get the concept. You get what they're going for. So when they try to get $40 billion, you understand where that $40 billion is going. Right? It's going to be paying a lot of money to Oracle. It's going to be paying in order to build hardware. It's going to be paying to scale up data centers and the whole 9 yards. Right? Here's the thing. Intel gets $17 billion to do what? Like, I can't even be that snarky about Intel's vision. Like I am given so little visibility into Intel's vision, I can't even get snarky about it. Like, that's the thing. Like with Sam Altman, I can be a mean fucking bastard to Sam Altman. Why? Because he puts their vision out there. It might be a stupid fucking vision, but it's a vision he puts out there so that I can insult it. Intel doesn't even do, I'm like, I don't, so they're gonna get $17 billion? And I guess they're gonna do something with that. So yeah, that's how I feel about the whole Intel and NVIDIA thing. I think NVIDIA is throwing Intel a $5 billion lifeline, hoping beyond hope that they get their version of Steve Jobs to pull their ass out of the fire. I think this is also another political calculus, right? Basically, a fraction of the value of NVIDIA goes to Intel, basically, to score some political points so they can try to sell more hardware into China. But as far as Intel is concerned, I don't see how this rights the ship. I don't see where this takes them in the next decade, other than taking ever more money down to the bottom of the ocean. So what do you think about this? What do you think about NVIDIA investing $5 billion into Intel? What do you think about this on top of the government? 10%, right? SoftBank? Does it make you feel good? Does it put a special smile on your face every time you see SoftBank invest in something? But what do you think about it? Like, this is $16-17 billion going into Intel in the past couple of months. Is there a vision here that you see that I don't? Right? When was the last time you were excited about any Intel product? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. Remember to give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just be a real alpha dog and do it in the comment section like real men do. Do you remember SiliconDojo.com does still exist? We are going to have our first class in a long time, in-person class in Durham, North Carolina, a place called American Underground. That's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Make sure to become a member of SiliconDojo.com if you're interested in that. These are authority lists, gatekeeper lists, free to the end user. You just come and you just learn. Because some people are like, oh, Eli, oh, this is a scam. Oh, we found Eli's scam. He's saying become a member of Silicon Dojo, and then he's going to try to sell us classes. Yeah, because, you know, becoming a member is free and showing up to a class is free. You caught me. You caught me. You caught the scam. You caught the scam. Anyways, no scam. You just come, you learn. We're going to have a class on AI, LLMs, Olama, that type of thing. Anyways, that'll be coming up. Join SiliconDojo.com so you can stay in the loop there. We're having a fireside chat with the founder of a $2 billion cybersecurity company. That is coming up pretty soon. And yeah, SiliconDojo.com. And with that, see y'all later.